Welcome to the Word for 2021. Today we're in Judges chapter 17. We're almost done with the book of Judges. And in these final chapters, we actually see and witness the tragic downward spiral of the nation of Israel. In verse 6 of this chapter, we read, "Everyone did as he saw fit." Sadly, those are the exact same words that the book of Judges end with. Everyone did as he saw fit. How did the nation of Israel get to this point? It goes all the way back to chapter 2, verse 10. In that verse, we read that the truth was not passed on to the children. The new generation, they knew nothing of God or all that he had done. Therefore, people did whatever they thought was right. I'm reminded of a famous speech that former President Ronald Reagan once gave. And in that speech, he said, "Freedom is always one generation away from being lost." That could be said as well of the truth. The book of Joshua was a book of conquest. The book of Judges is a book of compromise. Over and over again, Israel did evil in the eyes of the Lord. Because of their sin, God gave them over to their enemies, and they suffered. In the midst of their suffering, they cried out to the Lord, and in compassion, God gave them a deliverer, a judge, or a champion to free them from the oppression of their enemies. There were great judges like Othniel, who was the first, or Deborah. There was Gideon, Jephthah, and then Samson. In these final chapters, chapters 17 to 21, there are no more judges that are listed by name. But what we do see is a series of events that chronicle the chaos and the decay of the corruption of Israel. I was once walking in the woods, and I came across a log, and instead of stepping over the log, I thought, I'll just step on the log and then jump over. As I put my foot on the log, it came crashing through the log right back down to the ground. That log was rotten. That tree trunk had been rotten and decayed from the inside. It looked good on the outside, but when any pressure was put on it, it was destroyed. That's exactly the picture that we have here at the end of the book of Judges concerning the nation of Israel. There was a man, as we begin this chapter, named Micah, and he started his own religion. And he set up his son as its priest. Later, a young Levite left the town where he was supposed to be serving to look for somewhere else to live. And Micah actually hired him to be his personal priest. And a false religion was started there in Israel. You know, the steps of decay of any nation always follow the same pattern. Moral decay starts in the home. Then it goes to the church. If the church does not stand up and call out sin, if it's quiet about sin, then it becomes normalized. Then the government takes over and it promotes sin. And finally, it protects sin. That's what we have seen in our own country, and that's what happened here in the nation of Israel. There's a phrase that I once heard that is very true. What we allow in moderation, our children will abuse in excess. What the children see in the home, they will always take to a new level. It was a true story that I once heard. There were two boys in a small Missouri town, and they found a dog. It was a black dog, a black tail, but there was a white tip on that dog. They loved that dog. They loved playing with it, and they wanted to keep the dog. But then they heard that their neighbor down the road had lost a dog. It was black with a white tip on its tail. They went to their father and said, "What do? We don't want to get rid of the dog. We don't want to give it back." The father then painted the dog's tail black. When the neighbor came asking about the dog, the father said, "That's not your dog. Our dog, he's all black." The boys, they learned a very important lesson from their father, and they played that out within their lives. What were those two boys' names? Frank and Jesse James. Two of the most notorious criminals of our nation's past. When there is no absolute truth, when there is no authority, when there is no compass for morality or for spirituality, people will always do whatever they see fit. Thank you for joining the Word for 2021.